Everyone talks about the results, but not the reality of taking a GLP-1. In this episode, Lauren shares what it's actually like on Zepbound. Appetite changes, workouts that feel different, even mood shifts you don't expect. It's not a highlight reel, it's the real, messy, human side of medical treatment. Because this isn't about quick fixes, it's about getting real treatment. I'm Dr. Doug Moretti. Welcome to the podcast tonight. We've got Lauren Scott. Lauren was on the podcast with me, our first episode.
Yes, it was awesome.
So we have Lauren back. She's going to tell more about her story tonight. So we're going to talk about the experience with GLP-1 medication. So Lauren, let's do a quick intro to you and what you've been through.
Yes.
Let me outline a few medical things, and then we'll jump into what your background is and what your experience has been here. So Lauren is one of my patients. She's been in our practice for about 4 years. So she has a history of pregnancy-induced hypertension and also gestational diabetes, and has struggled with her weight her entire life.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about you for people who didn't watch the first podcast by chance.
Yes.
Just so we know a little bit of background.
I'd be happy to. I'm Lauren. I have struggled with my weight as a very young little girl into my teenage years, my adulthood, and I have been diagnosed as obese, and I have done everything in the book to try to correct that problem, that issue that I thought it was my fault, when in reality it's a disease, and it's just something that I had to work through. I've been working through, and I took several different medications. I've done everything in the books, and then I came to your office and we worked on habit control. We worked on weight management, and you've helped me with weight loss tools, and I've used them, and I'm currently on a GLP-1 and I'm taking Zepbound.
Cool. And we're having some really interesting experiences with it. I can't wait to jump into this.
Yes, me too.
So when you talked about you got diagnosed with obesity and understood that it's a medical disease, what kinds of problems came with the obesity for you?
I think it was identifying the fact that I am obese. And, this was something that we try so hard for, and I know I'm not the only one who can contend with this. It's something that I struggle with on a daily basis, being obese, and actually just coming to terms with that word, because a lot of people come in for weight loss, and I'm assuming just as well as I have, thinking, okay, I have to work out, I have to eat right, and I'll lose the weight. It wasn't coming off. It hadn't come off unless I had a weight loss tool.
Yeah. So when we talk about obesity and the problems that it causes, we often see people with pregnancy-induced hypertension.
Yeah.
Or gestational diabetes, or just straight out diabetes once they get far enough along on the spectrum.
Yes, and that was my case. I was obese before I had my daughter, and then I had gestational diabetes, and I had a whole team. We talked about that in the last episode too, about how I had a team of amazing people working alongside me to help me lose weight during my pregnancy. And then as soon as I had my daughter, I said to myself that I would do everything in my power to do whatever it took to be as healthy as possible. And that took a lot of inner strength, being a new mom, and also trying to lose weight at the same time, and while producing milk, breastfeeding, all of the works. And basically it was hard. I was now in this rabbit wheel of just, keep moving, but no scale loss. And I have tried everything. Like I said, I did Optavia, and Optavia, I had lost a lot of weight, and it was a rapid weight loss, but there was no happy ending to that, in the respects that I didn't know what to do after. I had no official guidance that I felt like I could take on for myself or for others who were in the same position as I was.
You talking about the sustainability of that?
Yes,
Over
absolutely.
the long term?
Yes, totally. And I think I loved the program. I learned a lot about it. I even became a coach in the program, and I still stand by what it did for me at the time. But as you say, sustainability was not anywhere near in my case, where I still had no direction on why this weight was suddenly starting to come back on, even though I did everything correct. And that's when I began to, come into this position where I had to now seek more guidance. And that's when I came to you and I said, this is not working for me anymore.
It's really interesting to think about what people have gone through, to know that you hit it hard for so long. Optavia is really strict. They've got some really strict protocols, and people do lose a lot of weight with all sorts of programs, including that one. But yeah, the long-term sustainability is really hard with those. And so you get this rapid cycling,
Absolutely.
weight loss, and then stop the program, and then what happens?
Yeah, the weight
comes back on.
And it came on quick. It was not something that was just over time. It came on very quickly, and it was powerful enough for me to say this, all the work of the hard, dedication of such a strict deficit. And, coming off of that into the real world of engaging with real foods other than supplemental weight loss, that's where I obviously blossomed in my own line of work and, started working towards healthier habits, healthier eating styles, and started working with people and going back to school for all of that to help address better relationships with food, because I do believe restrictive eating causes a really, really bad relationship with food.
And now you're actually coaching other people too, aren't you?
Yes. I do. I work with clients one-on-one on sustainability, on relationships with food and weight loss, and doing it the natural way, doing it with love and tenderness, because we're all human. Weight loss is not an easy concept. When, people come in with a lot of vulnerability, and I meet them where at their marks, because if you don't, then you're going to have a burnout.
Yeah, it's so interesting to figure out, when I see a patient who's gone through all the stuff that you've been through, what the next step should be.
Yeah.
And some people really need to get into their diet habits, their exercise habits, and work on those some more, and we can make progress on that level. And they can even do it without a doctor. I mean, that I'm not necessary in that situation, but still guiding people along in the right direction. And then we have people who have already tried that. They've gotten to that level, and they need to take it another step. And that's where we work on medications.
Yeah. And I felt like in my journey, that's where I felt like it wasn't enough for me, for my own journey, to just rely on food, food eating habits, exercise, all of the things, because I was doing everything correct, textbooks correct. And there was a flat line with my weight loss. And, someone in my position, like I said, and I've said this in whether I was in this podcast or not, or just in conversation, that's a real struggle for somebody who's in that line of work. And, it's not always just about the weight loss, though. It's about better health, longevity. It's about living longer for my child too.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about your GLP-1 weight loss journey.
Yes.
So you didn't start with a GLP-1.
No.
You started with phentermine.
Yes.
Right? So tell me about your experience with phentermine first.
Phentermine scared me in the beginning because, of course, the natural thing to do is go look on Dr. Google. What is phentermine? What does it do to you? And I think I was very much at my prime of being ashamed of taking any weight loss tools at that point because I thought I could do it on my own. And when both hands were up in the air, phentermine really taught me a lot about myself. The pros, I had a whole bunch of focus. There's something about taking phentermine and having this focus and being able to. I don't think I've ever been diagnosed, and I think I should have been, but ADHD or ADD when I was younger. But this really streamlined a lot of focus for me. And I felt like for that reason, in that respect, it worked out great. It was perfect because I felt like it was not a food noise that I was battling. It's noise everywhere else. And we could touch on that on a different time and different subjects. But phentermine's, once again, it heightened. But the cons that I had with phentermine was that, yes, I lost about 10 pounds when I was on the drug. And I was happy with that at the time because at that point in my journey, it was more about sustainability, sustaining the weight. And also, I was working out a lot. So I felt like it elevated my workouts. I felt like I had so much energy. And I really enjoyed that about my journey, a part of my journey. But, the elevated heart rate was something that was of concern of myself. I think I even came in a couple of times. It wasn't with you, but it was with your partner. And I remember saying, I'm a stress case. I have so much anxiety because it was either in my own headspace or it was the drug itself. And we never knew. But, I took phentermine and my mood swings. I had a lot of mood swings. And since I have been off of phentermine, I was having a conversation with my mother about this today. And we were talking about how I was like, I don't think the same way that I did when I was on phentermine. When in comparison, and we'll get into GLP-1 on the Zepbound, on what a difference this has been, there's just a huge difference between the two of them for me personally. Everybody's body's different. Everybody responds differently, and it's totally respected whether or not you take Zepbound, phentermine, anything else in the mix, or any other tool that you use. Me personally, there was a huge contrast between phentermine, waking up at 5 a.m., having to take that drug, because if I did not take that pill by 5 a.m., I would be up until 2 a.m. It kept me going all day. I can clean the house. I can run around and run circles around my family. But I still had a chip on my shoulder because I think I just wasn't getting enough at rest that I could have. And that was my experience with phentermine.
That's really interesting. So you're highlighting a lot of the benefits that we see from the medication, but you're also highlighting almost every possible side effect that you could have from it.
Sounds like my life story. Yeah.
So for anybody who's considering taking weight loss medication, we always have to consider what benefits you would get and then talk about all the list of potential side effects. Not that anyone would get any of them, but one person might get all of them.
Right.
I mean, it just depends on how you do. So the medications get a bad name in some respect.
Yes.
Because those side effects can happen.
Yeah.
And we're not ignoring that. I just want everybody to know.
Yeah, no.
Like, it's a really careful thing that we talk about with people.
No, absolutely. And I think even when I speak on behalf of phentermine, I chose to take it, and you also had eyes on me. The practice had eyes on me while I was taking it. So it was very much a guided position that I was in. So for that respect, it worked for me on a lot of different levels, and it didn't work out, obviously, in a lot of others. But I definitely felt a contrast between getting off of it, and it took me time to wean off it because of the caffeine. I feel like it was a high, and a lot of people say, I heard somebody else talk about this, and they referred phentermine as the mommy drug because it's like the mommy drug that can get you going. You could do a million things at once and not even skip a beat, which is true. I will attest to that because I could do a marathon in my own house but nothing was happening to my weight except for the 10-pound loss that I had, and just, being so revved up and ready to go.
So in the last podcast, we talked about all the medications in general, very technical, laid out the percentage of weight loss that's average for each one. And usually after about a year, the medical studies show weight loss of about 8% with phentermine. We do have patients who lose quite a bit more.
Sure.
It's interesting. And then people who lose less. And so everybody's experience is different. It's inexpensive. It's been around for almost 70 years now,
Right.
which is crazy. But it's still a tool that we want to be able to use,
Right.
even though we consider the GLP-1 medications the best of the best, the newest of the new. But it's interesting. And when you took phentermine, we didn't really have access to a cost-effective GLP-1.
No, at the time when we had introduced the phentermine, it was because at the time, this was back when GLP-1s were not as exclusive as they are right now. And to pay $1,000 plus a month was out of my budget. When you look at two different options and they give you the option of paying whatever out of pocket, which is, like I said, depending on your insurance, mine covered. It was cheap for me to pay for. I could afford it. And that's the route we took. And obviously at the time, I wasn't ready for GLP-1. I was not in the headspace for it. And, I remember having a conversation, and you were a part of it. And you said to me, well, it's only going to take you so far before you kind of flatline on this one too. And that's what happened. And that's where I said, my hands are up in the air. I have to try something else.
So then we moved to Qsymia.
Yes.
And Qsymia is an interesting one too. It's a brand name. They have a discount program that's $100 per month.
Yeah.
You buy it straight from the manufacturer's pharmacy. And it's a lower dose of phentermine, and it's a little bit of topiramate, and it's combined together in a long-acting once-a-day drug.
Right.
So some people who have side effects to the full dose of phentermine actually do better with the lower dose of phentermine added with the topiramate. So tell us about your experience with Qsymia.
My experience was a little bit different. And like I said, I'm the all odds. I feel like the all odds patient when it comes in terms of tools. And I believe that when I don't, maybe because I have had additional coffee and I had a lot of caffeine, but I had headaches. I had a lot of headaches moving off of the phentermine because once again, I was more concerned about getting off of the phentermine than I was taking the Qsymia because I didn't want to have that crash that everybody has stated. Of course, Dr. Google, I'm looking and thinking this is what's going to happen. And it did for a minute, but anytime that I took the medication, because I have a sweet tooth naturally. And even the smell of it, I would get nauseous and I'd get sick. I got very sick on that drug specifically. And I even gained weight. I put on 3 to 5 pounds while I was on that one. And I said, I can't do this. It didn't work out for me. It was not one of my favorites because the headaches were so intense. And I think it was because I was on phentermine, but also getting my drinks at Starbucks, drinking the coffees and having that extra load of caffeine. So I think the caffeine drop was more of an issue for me, even though the Topamax was supposed to regulate. I think that's how you call it, right?
Yeah. Typically it reduces headaches, but mostly migraines though. I mean, it's pretty pointed on migraines.
Okay. That was not my case.
So it's interesting. You only took it for that month.
Yeah.
And you tried to power through.
I did.
Because you try your best at everything you do.
I am a warrior when it comes to trying. I put 110% into everything that I do. So yes, I pushed through it. And then I remember calling the office, and this is when we actually got face to face. And I said, this is what's going on. And my hands are up in the air. I don't care what it's going to cost me for GLP-1. I want in, and now I'm ready. And I think that was my aha moment, my pivot, and the best decision of my life. Hands down.
So the interesting thing, so a comment about Qsymia. I'm glad you told your failure story about it, because we do have other people who we're treating who try something, they have a side effect, and we stop the medication.
Sure.
And that happens with any medication, not just weight loss.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about any medication in our arsenal that we try or you'll try with any other doctor. And our attitude, I just want to highlight that we are trying to make your life better.
Totally.
And so we're not here to say, take this medication no matter what happens.
Yeah, no, of course. And I want to also highlight this in my GLP-1 medication. I've had nausea. I have had my bouts, and I'm still loving what is happening in terms of me choosing to go through and push through. These are choices that I make, and not because, either the doctor is recommending that I keep pushing through it or whatever the case. So you've been very good about all of that with me. And as soon as you took me off the Qsymia, that's when the built trust between, patient to doctor, that was a huge thing for me, because if you see me in pain, you're like, okay, let's have an alternative, because like I said, I'm a warrior. I'll push through anything. And I push through. And, with the GLP-1, with the Zepbound, even with the nausea coming through depending on the dose, I still have had a great experience.
So one more comment about Qsymia. We do have people who tolerate it pretty well. And I can imagine people who are taking it thinking, okay, this is a good fit, and I could do this long term.
Sure.
And that's what we're looking for.
Yes, and I think that not all shoes or not all feet will fit into the same shoe. We will all not be the same in terms of, every person's different. So somebody may love, even phentermine and stay on it and lose tons of weight, whereas the option of GLP-1 for me has been fully optimized, and I love it.
Okay, so now you're in the mindset to move on to the next step, which is a GLP-1.
Yes.
So tell me what your first experience was with taking it.
It was very, very emotional, because I believe that this was something that my body responded so well to. And I didn't know this euphoric feeling. I didn't understand what it was like to have the pressure, the load off. I said, finally, something is working, and this is something that I'm feeling so good on. And that it humbled me so quickly, because I gave GLP-1s such a bad rep for such a long time, because I thought it was a little hypocritical of me, because I was taking, a weight loss drug, but at the same token, GLP-1 and I was just not ready for it. But it changed me and how I view, myself taking it. It's been an amazing experience. The first weekend, I had to learn how to readapt, because I had food noise. I have food noise. I have an obsession over food. These things, when they hit you right in the face and your brain fog is completely gone, you're like, where do I begin? How do I begin? And that's when you reevaluate, or at least I've reevaluated my whole entire life in the last 6 months, as in terms of relationships and the way I view life, because I am now, I feel like, at peace. I feel like I have better control over just my mindset, because there's no other distractions. There's no food distraction. There's no body, I don't want to say dysmorphia, because I still have a lot of that still, but I believe that it just put me into a better position, a better healing part of my life.
So you talked earlier about just craving food all the time.
Yeah.
Always thinking about food.
Yes.
Preoccupied. Kind of like you were a starving child somewhere, and you were in a normal environment and still feeling those same feelings. That's crazy.
Well, honestly, someone like myself and others probably can contend with food noise. And when we say food noise, it's the constant, it's a combination. It's not just the food. It's what are people thinking about me eating this food? I'm eating too much. Am I eating enough? Am I going through, like, should I eat at this time? Like, there is an obsession beyond just, I want to eat the bag of Doritos. Because 95% of the times it's not even about the Doritos. It's about what can I have in my hands? What can I have in my mouth? It is a sensory thing too. So I believe that when that was all removed, it's like, do I start a hobby? Do I start painting? What do I do? And I started painting. I love painting. It's one of my hobbies. And it just flows eloquently. Like, you just don't think about anything else. And your mind, the trap that food noise has over everything else, like, what am I going to cook for dinner? How much of this am I going to eat? It's like not even there. And now in terms of what's on the dinner menu, I have to think about it now. I'm like, it's not in my head because I'm focused in on other things now that are much more important.
I read something really interesting lately about people who are starving, and they're totally preoccupied with food. It's all they can think about. And this Minnesota starvation study that was done in World War II, they actually had volunteers who were conscientious objectors. And so they went in and subjected themselves to a starvation study.
Okay.
And while they were in this severe calorie deficit, all they could think about was food.
I don't blame them.
And they would go and they would sit in restaurants and watch people eat. And they would read cookbooks. I mean,
that's horrible.
Talk about taking up your whole day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So some people that's really strong for.
I would imagine, and even someone who is in that spectrum, for me, if and we can even like that show, we've talked about this, The Biggest Loser. They did a segment on how they would line up all of the meals for the contestants. That is just murder for an obese person who has food noise, including myself.
So are you talking about when they would try to tempt them?
Yes, absolutely.
With sweets and other things?
Absolutely. I mean, how could you do? I mean, that is just injustice to somebody who is in a very low calorie deficit and then looking at food and you are teasing them, to see if they can handle it. When in reality, this is a disease and nobody on that, even on the show may have, whoever produced it may have thoughts in their headspace that someone who has obesity, it's like a slap in the wrist. It's like you're dehumanizing someone for having, something that they can't even control themselves. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that food noise.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to live with. Mm-hmm. And you can't turn it off.
No.
You still get to make the choice.
Right.
But you can't turn that sensation off.
No, and even being on a GLP-1, because, after a full week of taking it, you're day 6, day 5, and you'll find that people will even say, including myself, that food noise does sometimes come back. And you're like, okay, it's the chatter. It's the, am I hungry? And you start thinking about it again. It's something that I think that it's something that I'll deal with for the rest of my life, which is something I've accepted, but also acknowledging that that is a symptom of obesity.
Right. Okay, so you got through your first week or so.
Yeah.
Tell me how the rest of the month went with your first month.
My first month, it was amazing. I mean, I've been on it for 6 months now. I think that even the first month, it was very, enlightening. And I just felt so good. It was, I felt lighter. I felt like I was getting better sleep. My relationships, once again, I was focusing on a different level with everybody else, because now I felt like I was myself. I didn't know who I was without the food noise. We rely so hard on that as an obese woman. There had been seasons in my life where I had relied on that as a source of living. And when you remove that source of living, how else do you live? You go and enjoy things. You learn how to adapt. I've been walking every day. I've been having fun with my family. I've been, having a different type of respect for food because I don't eat as much of it, that's for sure. It's been an amazing experience.
It's really interesting. Has it affected your mood?
Yes, in a good way. I think in terms of if we're going to do between phentermine and a GLP-1, my mood has completely changed. I'm a lot more balanced. There's a balance that happens with the GLP-1 that you get to experience. I was talking to another, friend of mine who is also on the same one as I am. She's on a GLP-1. She's taking Zepbound. And she's like, is this normal to feel so euphoric? I was like, absolutely. You're starting to balance out. You're starting to feel like you're supposed to. You're supposed to feel these things. And because we're just so slammed with the stacking of the food noise, you know what I mean? And you're so stressed out because you feel guilty for that. There's a lot of guilt that goes in with food noise or with, the outside chatter. Food noise is, it has its stems. The way you look, the way you dress, the way you present yourself, the way you're presented, the way people see you, and how you compose yourself.
So that euphoria, does that come from having a weight lifted off of you in some way, or like what's the origin of feeling that mood sensation?
So this is an example. So when I'm at rest and when I'm waking up in the morning and this is off a GLP-1, this is not on a GLP-1, I would feel very tired, very restless, very foggy, just not right, just feel like sore. And I hadn't even worked out. And when I started taking the GLP-1, immediately I felt this finesse. It was like everything, body circulation was just right on point. Like I've never experienced anything like that. I was like, wow, if this is how I'm really supposed to feel, and I've said this before, then this is the first time I'm really living. And this is the first time that I get to enjoy life like someone who is non-obese. It's finally seeing the lens out of someone who has never experienced what billions of us, including myself, are going through on a daily basis. And there's such a stigmatism behind being obese and such hatred on my population because we are looked at as we're just so hungry. We have no concept of how to eat. We have no concept of restriction. We have no concept of self-respect or whatever the case may be. And it's like, lo and behold, I've been on medications. I've been busting hard in workouts. And for the first time in my life, I'm letting the tool, elevate me instead of me put so much pressure on how to use the tool. So it's been amazing.
Yeah. So, okay, we're into the first month. Mm-hmm. You're feeling like you feel like you should have felt over for your entire life, right?
40 years. Yeah.
We better step back. Let's get honest here.
Okay.
So not everybody has as much response to the GLP-1 as you did.
Au contraire. When it comes to, in terms of my first month, yes, I had really great response. And then once we dosed up, that's when I started to have the nausea. That's when I said, okay, is this really going to work? Because now I'm sick to my stomach. I don't feel well. And in fact, I missed a trip. I was supposed to go home and I did not go back to where I grew up because I was just so nauseous. I couldn't do it. So yes, in terms of the cons of a GLP-1, dosing up and not eating correctly, because I believe there's strategy in everything, and the warrior inside me was going to do everything in my power to figure it out. And what happened was I went in very, very strong. And after my first month, and this happens with just naturally, when you feel euphoric, you're like, I could take on the world. I could start working out again. I could start doing all the things. I took it 100. I started working out really hard again. I was, when I dosed and I wasn't eating, and that's what happens naturally. Your body does not give you those signals anymore that you need to eat. And that's how I got nauseous, I got sick, and I had to use the anti-nausea medicine, which I felt like pregnancy again. I kept saying to my husband, I said, Ryan, we have to go get those chews. We have to go find me those Prego pops, because this is exactly, I was like, I hope I'm not pregnant, because this feels exactly the same. And lo and behold, it was because of timing. Timing is everything on a GLP-1 too, on how I was eating.
So there's other people, I'm going to get back to diet in just a second, but there's other people who take it and just sail through, no side effects.
Sure.
Some people who feel even more appetite suppression, and some people who feel even less appetite suppression. It's really interesting how there's a whole spectrum of people and their responses.
Yes, and even it wasn't too far ago where I had worked out so hard that I had put on 3 pounds. We talked about this, and this happened where, I was putting on, whether it was putting on muscle or I was having a lot of water retention. I don't know yet, but at least in terms of, a weight gain, I still had one, but I'm still sailing right through. And that happens naturally. I mean, at some point, there's always going to be the up and down hills of anything you take. It could be Zepbound, it could be phentermine, it could be any type of tool. Whatever tool you use, you're going to have an up or a down, or you're going to have some sort of journey that goes along with it. Please tell me the first person who's had a complete streamline. I would love to meet them, because honestly, I believe everyone's experiences, someone will stall. I've stalled, but I've been through my journey of tools. I have learned and accepted that there are going to be ups and downs in this, but if you just keep focused and you take it day by day, you will see the goal. You will surpass your goals. And that's what I'm after in terms of scale. I was talking to my girlfriend about this earlier. I was like, when I started this GLP-1, I absolutely wanted to see scale loss. Most people would be like, don't focus on the scale. The scale is not everything. But for me, this is where I was goal driven. I wanted to see it. So that's what I'm after. So if this means that, I go up a couple pounds, I have a very good relationship with the scale though. I have learned and developed, because it took me years. It was never an easy thing where I was weighing myself every single day, not out of obsession, but for data and for statistics to see exactly when, because as a female, we have cycles. So naturally things are going to go up and down. So you don't know. You can't judge 1 week after another. It's all coming to terms with acceptance and knowing that it's not just about the scale, even though that is for me, and the blood work. The blood work is number one for me. My blood work has been, I was so impressed by the change that I've had from when we did this 6-month, blood work, and, we saw how I was now no longer pre-diabetic, or I was in that line, that margin, I'm below it, and that was a miracle. I could not do that without a tool, whether that was phentermine, Qsymia, or even the GLP-1. So in terms of these tools, I am pro tool 100%, because that's what it's always been about.
Well, and two, you were doing the best you could on your diet.
Yeah.
And doing exercise too.
Yeah.
And you were still in those ranges that were pre-diabetic and liver conditions and stuff like that.
Right. And
so, people like you in 10 or 15 years end up having diabetes, and they end up having liver damage from fatty liver and a whole host of other things. There's even cancers associated with obesity.
Absolutely. And the fact that I will absolutely say that, because I'm also in that spectrum of, being monitored for breast cancer, that was the most eye-opening experience to really justify the fact that, obesity could have been, a factor of that. And I have, it's humbled me quite a bit, and it has motivated me even more to step my game up even harder, being that I'm being monitored for this, this mass that I have. And, it's something that motivates me, and it humbles me even more to say that I know GLP-1s are also helping breast cancer and all of the things.
Yeah, we think they will. We don't have any scientific data on it yet,
I hear a lot about it.
but we know that there's 13 cancers that are clearly associated with obesity. So that's a clear correlation.
Exactly.
Now, if we do treatment and we see what the cancer outcomes are, we'll be able to see, is it really reducing cancer incidence?
Yeah, and I'm in hopes of whatever is to come in the next 6 months for me personally, that the leverage that I'm making right now is going to propel, a healthier version of myself. And I won't be that statistic of having, breast cancer or anything else.
Yeah. So tell us how the rest of the months have gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, like I said, amazing. And I love being on the GLP-1. The last month, I stalled, and I was okay with it. I got a little frustrated because I worked very hard with my workouts, but that's part of that's the icing on the cake. Is as soon as you start dropping weight, you start feeling good. So you're moving around a lot more better, and improving your skill. And for that reason, I was very excited, and I had to lean back into the idea of, okay, where do I scale back, or where do I find a happy medium? And so, like I've said, I've been walking with my husband every morning, and I've been very cautious of how my eating, style has been. I'm eating a lot more, but a lot less at the same time, if that makes any sense, in terms of I'm eating a lot more protein, but I'm timing it correctly. I'm not waiting until I wake up to inject and, do all the things. I'm very systematic about it, because I believe if you don't have a system in place, even with the GLP-1, and this is where people may or may not fail on a GLP-1, is because if you're not strategic about this, you will get sick, you will get nauseous, you will feel these things if you're not getting adequate enough hydration, if you're not moving, if you're not getting enough protein in, and if you're not eating at certain times of the day and eating small meals, you're not going to see the success you may want to see.
The other thing we see is people cheating just a little bit and eating that fatty meal.
Sure. And I am definitely one of those people.
That can cause some pretty significant nausea.
Yes. And I learned that the hard way. And I'll be honest that, everybody is human, and you kind of test the water, so to speak, and you see what you can and can't do as far as testing things. I mean, personally now, that's not even in my headspace. I don't really, if I go out and eat, it's a very healthy, like I always pick out a protein, a carb, a fat, a fiber, and I know what the plate looks like. It's a system. And so I go off a plate system really on a GLP-1, and then you're intuitive about the way you're eating. You stop when you are full. Don't go anymore, because then you're going to feel, I was telling you this earlier about how I feel like it takes a lot longer at this dose. I'm on 10 milligrams as we speak. And this dose has definitely set in where my plate is telling me, like, stop. I'm looking at my plate and I'm like, okay, now I'm talking back to my food noise. So it's a new way of communication with my brain.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So what's the best diet with a GLP-1?
What's the best diet for a GLP-1? And
what has been the best diet for you?
for me personally, I think that eating a fat, a carb, a protein, and also having a carb, and having a very balanced meal at every meal. So,
and you added fiber.
Yes,
I heard
fiber.
that earlier.
Yes,
that's
fiber.
really good.
I have at least 30 grams a day. That is like my main focuses are protein and fiber. I get 30 grams of the fiber. That's non-negotiable for me.
Props to you for
Thank
that.
you.
That really helps.
It does. And also the protein, I try to leverage as much as the weight that I want to push for. I'm usually around 150 to 160 grams, depending on the day. I try. It's very hard to push sometimes. I'm going to be honest. Anyone who's on a GLP-1 is going to look at me and be like, you're full of it, because it's very hard. It's very hard. But it's all strategy. It's strategic. It's, how do I get in 30 grams without feeling like I'm stuffing my face, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So I try to get in in the morning. All my big meals are more earlier than they are later, because I think if you eat too late, that's where I feel kind of sick. But in terms of what diet works the best for me, I think just a very healthy, balanced diet. There's no specific diet protocol other than getting every food group in, really. And that's, and fats. I think fats are so underrated, because if you have enough fat, it regulates your hormones, you feel satiated, and it takes you a lot further. So like a pack of almonds would be, a good idea if you wanted to have a little bit longer, leverage. If you're going out, that's a snack that I would take. But I would also add in a protein with that, like a piece of cheese, and then maybe a fiber, something like an apple, or something that is going to mix and match to my liking, because everybody's palates are so different. You can't say that everything's going to work for one specific.
Okay, so a balanced diet, some protein, some carbs, some fat, a fiber. Keeping your sugar intake low.
It's very low.
Keeping the unhealthy fats, pepperoni and other greasy kind of cheese kind of stuff out.
Yeah, the sound of that even just sounds so bad right now. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And 150 grams of protein is actually a lot. So we're not making any recommendations on how much protein you should be eating. So talk to your dietitian or healthcare provider about that. But it can be different for everybody. We do want to have everybody get adequate protein.
Yeah.
So we think that that's protective against losing muscle. But yeah, there's probably a wide range of what you could do. You could do ultra high protein and probably be okay.
Yeah.
You could even do slightly less protein than, less protein and still be okay as long as you're getting protein on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think everybody, like I said, everybody's bodies are different, because, you could be that patient who has insulin resistance. How do you cultivate that with a GLP-1? How do you work and linger around the idea of having a low carb diet versus a high carb or high sugar, low sugar? And so that's something that I'm meddling with, because I'm not even really clear on that at this point right now, with what's considered a normal range of weight loss per month. And are we goaling for that, or are we goaling for a better health lifestyle?
Yeah. My approach, and I guess I'm just going to come out and say it, I hate diets.
Yeah.
I hate the thought of telling people to do something so strict that they couldn't do it for more than like 3 months at a time.
Makes sense.
I think that that's totally useless.
Yeah, because it's burnout.
And maybe it's not completely useless. I mean, I can see times when some people should try to do that. So not trying to knock anybody who's doing that. But we want to get people on a path that's sustainable and long-term. So in that case, that's where the balanced diet comes in. What can you eat and enjoy and have this be your lifestyle, instead of trying to hit something so hard, so strict for 3 months.
Right.
And then try to figure out after that what you're going to do.
Well, my approach, even with my own clientele, is building a healthy relationship with food. It really comes down to the relationship and saying and allowing yourself that grace, that these things are okay. Nothing is off limits. It's all in moderation. You are only human, and you should never feel guilty about whatever you put in your mouth.
So that's interesting. So, and I agree. I think you should be allowed to have something sweet.
Sure.
Or something, dessert or some kind of treat. But having a knowledge of what you can have in your day and plugging that in like a little puzzle piece. This fits here and it's only this much.
Yeah.
And then you're being wise about what you're eating still.
I think if you told me personally, and this is my reaction, I feel like it's a lot of why people don't find success in their weight loss journeys is because we are so quick to say no. And when that word no comes through, that's when people retaliate. I retaliate when I am told no. I will absolutely do everything to find the yes out of that. And I believe that when it comes to, you talk about desserts, some people can't have the full on sugar desserts. They're diabetic, pre-diabetic, or insulin resistant. So what are the alternatives? If you sit here and say, yes, you absolutely can. If I sat here and I said to you, okay, no, you may not have any of this, versus sure, you can, you're more likely to say, okay, I'm allowed to, but actually because you're saying I can, I'm not even going to touch it, because I'm not feeling like that subconscious restrictive feeling. And this is what I coach on with all of my clients. It says, go ahead if you want to, because that's where my aha moment came through. Even with my dietitian, when I was in my pregnancy, she's like, Lauren, you are more than welcome to go for it. And I never thought, I was like, really? And she said, yes, absolutely. She's like, why not just have half of it? And then I thought to myself, this is exactly what needs to be said more often. The no's need to get out of the door. It's yes, you can, just in moderation. And you're less likely to go grab that piece of pizza if I sit here and tell you yes, or you're less likely to go after more because it's going to be taboo. So when you're being told no so much, and then once again, the obesity and food noise for somebody who's got that already as it is, you're telling them no. And then you're in the back room, you're scarfing down in hiding, like I did in my pantry, where I was hiding my eating habits so that way nobody saw it. And then you have this vicious cycle with overeating and obsessive compulsive situations.
Yeah, I think it's really smart to have some insight into your psyche and know what your brain needs to help you make good decisions.
There's a lot less stress involved when when you give them the world versus taking it away.
Yeah. So we're talking about an experience here. We don't want to give people dietary advice directly, because actually some people should be on a really strict low carb diet if they have certain medical conditions. That would be really good. And for other people, they could actually do a low fat diet or vegan or any of those other styles of diets. And so we are big advocates of using dietitians to help guide that decision process.
For sure.
And help give you enough insight so that you know what kind of diet would be right for you.
Yes, and obviously it's a patient to patient, and client to client situation. So everybody's different, and even in any one that I've ever worked with, it's the same thing. I'm not going to give them the opportunity to sit there and take on if they're insulin resistant or if they're high diabetics. Of course, I'm not going to give you pineapple right away. You know what I mean? I'm going to say, okay, there's other alternatives where we can induce a happy medium.
So another scientific fact is that there's really no one diet right now that's being recommended for GLP-1 use. So we are recommending that you find the right diet, keep it reasonable, and try to find out what's right for you.
I really feel like an intuitive eating is like the best approach, because if you can't listen to your body, if you're not listening to food noise, what are you going to listen to? You've got to listen to what's happening on the inside. And you almost are forced to do that. And I think that's where people struggle with GLP-1, because they're like, oh, I'm so full. Oh, this is happening, because we are, at that point. And intuitive eating, I think, is, and obviously, like, for me, it's the plate system, where you just have your basics and then go from there.
Yeah. Well, tell me, as you're going through your GLP-1 journey, are there any issues that are really difficult for you to deal with?
My issues with GLP-1 have been just removing the food noise and then going back into my own, regulation. And, that's what I struggled with, is understanding that what, I used to consume is no longer, a situation, and I have to consume less. And, that has been my biggest issue with honestly, there hasn't been any other issue other than, maybe the sight. Sometimes I rash up, and, I haven't had any problems that I could not handle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a little bit of nausea. That was short-lived?
It is short-lived in the respects that I'm strategic about the timing. I believe if there's no diet, then there should be some timing control of a GLP-1. That's my thought. And it's just because it's strategy on how and timing. I find that even not only myself, but if people are going too far in hours, 4 to 5 hours max of not having something in their system, they are going to get nauseous. And I read up on someone talking about, well, is it nausea or are you really actually hungry and your body's sending you the wrong signals? So I thought that was very interesting. And I thought to myself, well, maybe if you do eat just a little bit more, what would that invoke? I mean,
yeah,
it's been nausea, but it hasn't been full on actually having nausea.
Okay. So for anyone who's interested in looking at the actual listed side effects on the medications, most of the websites have a list of adverse effects, and you can just look.
Yeah.
And they have a percentage written by each one, and then they have a placebo. So you compare people with placebo, something like diarrhea, the incidence is about 15 to 20% with some of these medications, and then the placebo is actually like 10%. So that's interesting. So it's not 20% total, it's 10% more than people who are on placebo. And so that can help you plan ahead and think, okay, what are my chances of getting this or that side effect? So
Interesting. And my question to you would be, do you believe that when they have them in the decimal, the 0.5 versus the 10 or the 2.5 versus the 5, do you believe that those in-between doses have more or less of an effect on the GLP-1?
So meaning when you go up on the dose?
So basically what I'm saying is 7.5 versus a 10. 10 being potent, 7.5 not being placebo, like a placebo effect. Do you think that there's a placebo effect between the 0.5s versus the actual full numbers?
Well, there is a gradual step up between these doses.
Right.
And so I mean, the 7.5 is slightly more potent than the 5, which is slightly more potent than the 2.5.
Sure.
So like the 5s and the 10s, there's no magic about the actual number. It's just slightly more potent.
The reason why I'm highlighting this is because I believe that if you're on a GLP-1, sometimes there's that induced thought that the 7.5 is weaker than a 10, pushing and maybe, staying on the 7.5 longer or less because they want to move up because they think that that's going to motivate more weight loss. So what are your thoughts on that? What do you tell people who are in that position?
So you're talking about someone at the 7.5
who wants to push up because
wondering if they should.
Yeah. When do you think it's acceptable to dose up?
Well, typically we can dose up every month if people are tolerating it okay.
Is that tolerating in the respects that they're seeing a weight loss that hasn't flatlined or weight loss that's happening gradually?
Well, tolerating in terms of not having side effects.
Okay.
So
is it more in terms of side effects?
Or tolerable or minimal side effects.
So is it in terms of side effects or actual weight loss?
Well, that plus weight loss. If you have somebody, like I have people who actually lose too much weight.
Right.
On the dose increase.
Okay, so do you dose them back down or do you keep them there?
It depends. Every once in a while we'd dose them back down, but we would at least not raise them to the next dose and let the weight loss slow down just a little bit so they can keep it under moderation. I mean, I think it's rapid important. Weight loss.
Yeah,
is
I think it's super important to highlight because viewers will, have these questions, and I'm obviously one of them, in terms of, well, do we move up or do we stay, or what are we looking at as the bigger picture to increase or stay or decrease? Because I was in that position with 7.5 and saying, right, I got to dose down, I can't handle this. Versus, actually going and pushing through.
Yeah. Well, if the side effects are uncomfortable, or there's some kind of medical concern about the side effects, then dosing down would probably be the best option. Okay. If the side effects are not too bad and kind of tolerable, And most of the time, they kind of wither away.
Right. And
then it would be okay either to stick with that same dose and let you get used to it some more the next month before you push up to the next dose.
On average, what would you think is a healthy weight range to lose a month on a GLP-1?
The average weight loss, I'm going to get to that answer with a little bit of detail. The average weight loss is about 3% per month.
Okay.
In the medical studies.
Okay.
So we think about starting weight and just take 3% of that.
Okay.
And that's considered average.
Okay.
You know, if you lost a lot of weight really fast, there's some problems with that.
Okay.
So if someone's losing like 10% per month,
and I know I've seen that
I would
happen.
tell them that that's too fast.
Right.
Because you almost can't lose that much fat
Right.
in a month. So you're going to be losing other tissue types, muscle. And we don't even really know if there's bone loss, but we're measuring total lean mass loss in some of these studies. So, yeah, I mean, you just have to be smart about it.
Okay. That answers my question. I'm sure a lot of people who are watching are going to say, you know, even if they're not even on a GLP-1 yet. And, you know, I feel like the sources and outsourced information coming from a GLP-1, you know, doctor, you know, it's so informative to hear this because, like I said, a lot of people outside of, you know, weight loss have an assumption. People who are in weight loss are the assumption, and the people who are, you know, giving out the medication or, you know, giving out the information for it. So I think it's really important to hear. So thank you.
The other interesting point that I find is probably the most common misconception is the thought that people want to take it for 3 to 6 months, reach their goal.
Sure.
You know, and then stop.
What do they do after that?
Exactly.
Right.
So we're trying to treat people to get people medically healthy and physically healthy and mentally healthy and organ systems healthy, liver function, diabetes levels, blood pressure. And so we're using it just like we would use any other tool. You know, if you're losing weight to help your diabetes, of course, if you regain the weight, then that diabetes risk comes back, right?
Absolutely.
And then if you're treating with other medicine for diabetes or blood pressure or something like that, we want people to get on a pathway and stay on it.
Absolutely. Because I believe even as an obese woman, and anybody who has the obesity disease knows or should know that that weight will come back unless you have some sort of tool to use alongside it. And we have to be more accepting of that. And I think society is just not ready to hear that.
No, I don't think they are. I think they get mad about it.
Yeah.
And it gives a bad rap.
Absolutely.
They give the GLP-1s a bad rap because they say, oh, well, you're just going to gain all the weight back once you stop it. And my response is, if you really are the right pick for the GLP-1, you need to be on it forever.
Yeah. And I think that's important to highlight.
It's even hard to say the word.
No, but I mean, it's very important to highlight because if we are going to condition obesity as a disease, then we need to start acting like it and say this is going to be a forever thing. And that's my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really important to create that foundation and be a little bit more confident for those who are on GLP-1s as a form of obesity, not because they feel like they need to lose 15 pounds and they're not on the spectrum. I'm speaking on behalf of the population, my population of obesities, that you will have this for the rest of your life. And that is okay. There's nothing wrong with you. This is how it happened. This is how your body was laid out. But what you do about it is what's going to change everything.
So let's compare it to other diseases, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes. There's people who get these diseases and they don't do anything to deserve it. So high cholesterol, is present in 50% of people unrelated to obesity. Sorry, let me go back. People with high cholesterol, 50% of them are unrelated to obesity. The other 50% are usually related to obesity. High blood pressure, the number is probably a little bit higher. 60 to 70% of people with high blood pressure have obesity, and the other just have some genetic or some other kind of issue that causes their blood vessels to tighten up, and they have high blood pressure.
And you know what makes us so different? And you know what makes obesity so different? Because this disease, you could physically see it. You can't
Exactly.
see cholesterol. You can't see all the other diseases that are internal. But obesity, you can see it. You know it. You can call it. You can see it a mile away.
So you get to judge it.
Exactly. The stigmatism is right there.
So if you're really the right pick for treatment, you really should think about forever treatment.
Yeah.
And that's my first conversation that I have with every patient.
And there's a relief behind that, as hearing that from even you when I first came in here. There was a relief that I found knowing that this was not my internal fault, and that this was something that I would have to deal with. Okay, finally someone is speaking my language here, because if this is something that I've been struggling with, nobody's been giving me direction other than, you as a doctor. So with that said, there's a lot of relief for me, and I'm sure there's a lot for others that are like, I could breathe a little bit knowing that this is not just something that the stigmatisms are, kind of pushed aside for that reason, for me personally.
So let's look at where you are now with your health.
Yes.
And how we should encourage everybody else to view things. I mean, okay, so you had pre-diabetes. Your liver levels were a little high.
Yeah.
How was your blood pressure? I'm trying to remember.
My blood pressure,
Any issues there?
I had issues with it during the phentermine. And so I would assume almost immediately that it had to do with the fact that I was just naturally obese with that.
And we knew you had pregnancy-induced
Yep,
hypertension.
Exactly. So I had high blood pressure there.
That predisposes people to have high blood pressure later in life. So now your diabetes numbers are like on the floor.
Yeah.
Totally normal.
Yeah.
Liver levels totally normal. So a lot of people come to me and say, great, I'm cured.
No, I do not think that way. I personally know, and this is just based off of, it's like a factor of life. Like, this isn't going to be never ending. You told me that from the start. I believe that. I believe that this is going to be something that I'll struggle with for the rest of my life. It's like somebody trying to get off of any type of medication, blood pressure medicine. Is that an example? That could be an example. It's a disease, right? So if you take them off, they're going to get high blood pressure.
Right. Their blood pressure is normal.
Yeah.
They're on treatment.
Yep.
And then they stop treatment and boom.
And they get back. Yeah.
Yep. And people don't realize that happens with obesity, but it's shown over and over.
It's like a rubber band.
Hundreds of studies show weight regain, and then the prediabetes comes back, and the fatty liver comes back, and you get elevated fat liver enzymes.
Well, it's our fat cells, right? They replicate, and they also they remember. It's like a membrane, right? So it remembers. It's not going anywhere.
They do have a memory.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if that's the case, then obviously in 15, 20 years from now, if I don't continue this, then my memory is going to come back. It's just like it's like an elastic band. It will stretch, but it'll bounce right back.
Right. And it doesn't take that long for most people to get there.
Yeah.
Sometimes people can hold out for a couple of years.
Sure.
But it's often within 3 to 6 months that people really start to get back on the weight regain.
And I think that's where the awareness needs to be really front and center, is because there's so much burnout. People just give up because they think, I've tried so many times and nothing's working. Well, then I'm just going to stop. And it's like, well, you haven't even addressed that you have a disease. So let's fix the disease. You would go in immediately if you found out you had cancer. You would fix that disease any way you could, because that's life and death. Well, same with obesity. That is life and death as well.
So, any other messages that you want to send to people who are in the same boat you were several years ago, trying to figure out what the next step should be?
Never give up. You will have seasons where you want to just absolutely give up and never look back. But in my opinion, I would not be who I am right now today if it weren't for pushing through every, mountain that I have had to, climb. So once again, you're human. It's okay. You're going to be fine. And, just stay your route. Stigmatisms are always going to be there. People are always going to judge. And if you don't take care of yourself, then, you're not even going to have your own last laugh.
And I would say for me, if anybody has any medical conditions related to obesity, that ups the ante so much to get treatment.
Oh, yeah.
Because that just leads down the road to worse and worse conditions.
Yeah. And you don't want to end up wondering why these other things have been caused, because of one thing, you know what I mean? And it's causing a whole bunch of other problems in other areas of your life. So I agree. I 100% for the viewers and people who are watching, you are so worth your health. And just by adding an extra 5 or 10 years on your life would do so much justice.
Another thought I had is even people who don't have coexisting medical conditions, it's still okay to seek treatment.
Absolutely.
Because down the road, obesity leads to so many other things that we don't see now. So you don't have to have prediabetes or high blood pressure, fatty liver disease, or anything else to warrant treatment.
I agree with you. And those people who are in that spectrum, who are shy of 5 or 10 pounds of wanting to lose weight, I am absolutely for it. You know what I mean? You're probably not getting as stigmatized as somebody who's trying to lose weight if you're 75 pounds overweight, but that's just the default. But I promote better health and wellness all the way full circle.
Well, I better clarify that comment just so we know what the criteria are. If you want to lose 5 or 10 pounds, you may not be in the treatment zone for medications.
Okay.
Because we really shoot for, right now we're using a BMI, but there's active conversation about other criteria. But a BMI of 30 or above would warrant treatment with medications, or 27 and above with other medical conditions. And if you had a BMI of 25 or 26, we're assessing people, figuring out what their racial background is, doing body composition testing and testing what their visceral fat level is, seeing if they have fatty liver disease, and making decisions based on that. But there are people who have a really high BMI and don't have active medical conditions right now. And I just wanted to point out that treatment is still okay for those people who don't have that medical condition in addition to obesity.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm trying to think if there's any other pearls of wisdom that I want to give. I've talked a lot about the main things that I try to bust with myths when people come in to see me. You've talked about your experience and just really cool with how you've pushed through a lot of issues.
Yeah, I think that's like my pearl wisdom to give to anybody is if you push through even the hardest times, you will see light at the end of the tunnel, always. Because once you take that roller coaster up, what comes up must come down, what goes down must come up. So just keep pushing through.
And the other amazing thing about your story is how much better you felt.
Yes.
Like taking away all the weird stimulus that obesity caused your system, your thought process, your cravings, your digestion system, and how medication treatment actually helped you feel more normal.
Yes, and I think that this has like been the best decision. Once again, I will always say this. Who anybody I get asked all the time, "Are you on a GLP-1? How do you feel about it?" I say this is the most life-changing thing I've ever had. And if you ever want to feel what normal feels like, this is a whole new norm that you get to experience, and it's so worth every penny that I'm investing in this.
Well, really cool story.
Thank you.
I love hearing it over and over.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
We would love to hear some comments. So post comments. We'll see what we can do to answer any more questions. And actually give us some suggestions for future podcast content. So thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.